that was undoing all the horrific damage that has been covered up from the 19th century, the 1800s. Because the 1800s, it's almost as if all the protocols were collapsing, inventing new situations, and then collapsing those within 2 or 3 years. There is no way to unravel and make sense of all the data that we're getting about the 1800s. It's almost as if several timelines were operating at the same time, and that there was no control mechanism that was governing over the output. We had highly sophisticated things going on in the 1800s at the exact same time. We got the old Wild Wild West and gunslingers running around doing their thing just miles away. It doesn't make sense what we find. And we find architecture all over the world in places that in our maps today, there was no infrastructure. There was no colonization. There was nobody here. They're not found in any of our historical records. There's no ship log manifest showing that there was any shipping going into these areas. And yet these areas must have had high volumes of trade in order to get the materials to build where they built. It doesn't make sense. It's not just Western stuff. I mean, we have ruins in Cambodia, throughout India, that are of modern provenance, but they're made to look ancient. There are temples that have carvings and all kinds of etchings that no one in India knew about 100 years ago. Now all of a sudden we're getting pictures and reports from archaeologists of hundreds of sites that have been above ground supposedly for thousands of years of a carving technology for which we're not familiar with. We don't even know how they did that. But how come none of the great explorers in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, all the way going back to Thor Heyerdahl and all these men that explored? There are so many archaeological monographs that have been published from that part of the world of basically white guys going way out in the middle of nowhere and just cataloging all the people they talked to, all the places they've been. India was scoured 300 years ago. 250 years ago, 200 years. None of these places existed, but they're there now. So we have a problem. We have a problem with the fact that whole places have been edited in. Do I think they were created ex nihilo? No. What I believe is that holographic overlays of past simulations somehow remained here. They were not visible for a while. They had been edited out like they were supposed to, but something happened. Something happened after 1902 to the 1960s that brought all these civilizations back in a ruined condition, in a ruined state, and put them in all these different places for us to explore. But they weren't there 200 years ago. We have maps of those regions 200 years. So it's almost as if after 1902, all the fossils from the past simulations were just brought back and overlaid over the current template. That's the only explanation I can come up with.
I mean, people talk a lot about that, but they talk about timelines and timelines being overlaid and intercepted, and then we have the Mandela effects and everything, which it feels almost.
They'd be talking about the same thing, man. Yeah, we're talking about the same thing. Yeah. They're calling it timelines. I'm calling it holographic overlays. Yeah, it's the same thing to me.
Thank you, Mike. No. Yeah.